Welcome to Adam's Athenaeum. Let's take a look together through the news and records of our times as we try to shed light upon the unvarnished truth. Thanks for coming back to this episode, where we're going to talk about Joe Biden's pogrom speech yesterday, or his Soul of the Union address. Now, one thing we need to get out of the way right off the bat was the imagery. I'm going to go ahead and bring up some images here. The first one I've got was something that was noticed by others online that essentially shows CNN changing the lighting of the background during the Biden speech. You can see kind of in the beginning and the top picture of how red the background was, and the lower picture is kind of towards the end of the video. You can see in the color of the bricks and the color of the flag that it's a different tone. I wonder if that's maybe because they realized how bad the backdrop looked. I mean, let's be honest. Every picture, every image we have in history of authoritarians, of fascists, of dictators, they all basically look the same. Let's go ahead and pull up another one just to kind of prove the point here, right? This one will be familiar to anyone of my age, or I guess even parents of people my age. The Lion King, Scar, right? Remember when he's having his hyenas do the goose step march as he's beginning to take over the pride? Or I've got another one for you. Maybe not everyone will recognize this character, but some of you may. How about Mussolini? This picture of Mussolini is very close to Joe Biden's picture of, he's got the military in the background, Mussolini does. And this was from Video Evo, to give them credit. And then let's move on to one more. Because again, trying to make a point here, trying to make it obvious what seems to be their intention of whoever set up the stage. Last but not least, one that everyone should recognize, Hitler. Now, I'm going to pull up a side-by-side picture here of Joe Biden, this being from my thumbnail. And what do you think? I mean, I think it looks pretty stinking close to Hitler, doesn't you? We got Hitler's hands basically just like this, and then we got Joe Biden's hands just clenched is the only difference. I mean, it's silly to me. Whoever designed the set, that we'll call it, whoever designed the set that Biden spoke at during his pogrom did a terrible job. They had either no reference to history or don't know anything about history or how we portray dictators to be. And during Biden's speech, he was nothing but angry old Joe. Now, moving on from the imagery, in the beginning of his speech, Joe Biden was talking about where he was speaking from and how sacred the ground was, how sacred this place was that he was at. Well, my friends, let's go to Merriam-Webster to get an accurate definition of what sacred means. The definition of sacred, according to Merriam-Webster's, is dedicated or set apart for the service or worship of a deity. Devoted exclusively to one service or use, as of a person or purpose. Worthy of religious veneration, entitled to reverence and respect, of or relating to religion, not secular or profane, which is interesting. He's using a secular building as a political platform, right? He thinks, it shows quite clearly what the Democrats think. They think of themselves and the ground they walk on, right, as hallowed ground. These institutions are sacred places. They see themselves as gods and deities and above everything else. It's a little disturbing. So as we get into the meat of his speech, now granted, I was originally going to make this almost sentence by sentence breakdown video, just completely debunking everything that Joe Biden says during his speech. Because he sat up there for 24 minutes on national television and lied to your face. And they allowed it. I was going to debunk almost every single minute of it. And then I got about 8 minutes through, and I couldn't take it anymore. I've listened to this speech several times, and as I was just going through it again, trying to break it down and having to listen to sentences over and over again, I couldn't take it. I couldn't stand being lied to. I couldn't stand hearing false truths. I couldn't hear the projectionist bullshit that he was just spewing. It's crazy that these people are allowed to run for public office when they should be in a mental hospital. So what I did was I took a few key points from his speech. Some of these are direct quotes. Sometimes it's paraphrasing. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Just, a couple minutes into his speech, Biden starts talking about how equality and democracy are under assault. Yet what he means by equality is equality of outcome, not the equality of opportunity. He speaks of affirmative action programs that lower SAT standards and college entrance exams for Black and brown students, but raises the standards for whites and Asians. What does that mean? It means people who do not have the grades or applicable mental skill levels to be at this school are allowed entrance simply because of their skin color. That's racist. You're telling certain people that because of their skin color, they're too smart to go to school. And we got to let those who aren't as smart as you get into school, even though they're not smart enough to be here by your own standards. He speaks of democracy, whilst failing to realize that we live in a constitutional republic. The people that lead our country don't even know what kind of country we are. Repeatedly throughout this, he calls us a democracy. We're a constitutional republic that has democratic institutions. He continues to say, quote, "So tonight I've come to this place where it all began, to speak as plainly as I can to the nation about the threats we face, about the power we have in our own hands to meet these threats, and about the incredible future that lies in front of us if only we choose it." Since you're speaking plainly, Joe, am I to understand that you're here to tell me and the nation threats that you perceive to be real, and that you have the power in your hands to meet these perceived threats? Is this what you meant when you told Americans to rethink overthrowing the government because without F-15s, you would just nuke us? We have a right to overthrow tyrannical and oppressive government. You have no right to abuse, intimidate, or threaten the citizenry. Later on, he says, quote, "First, we must be honest with each other and with ourselves. Too much of what's happening in our country today is not normal. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. Now, I want to be very clear. Not every Republican, not even the majority of Republicans are MAGA Republicans. Not every Republican embraces their extreme ideology. I know, because I've been able to work with these mainstream Republicans. But there's no question that the Republican Party today is dominated, driven, and intimidated by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans, and that this is a threat to the country." Interesting. Very interesting. Do you know that this is how Hitler started demonizing the Jews? Called them dirty. He said they had diseases. Then he started going after their ideologies. And then he started to say they were cockroaches. And then he started to go clear out factories where all these dirty people worked. Did you know that he used, Zyklon B to kill rodents in the factories? And this is how Hitler gained acceptance and approval by the people of Germany, because he helped clear out the factories of rats and rodents. Well, that same gas that he was using to kill the rodents and the mice is what he later used to kill the Jews in the gas chambers with. And this is how it starts, by you demonizing your political enemies, calling them specific terms. On the internet, you'll hear the word maggots thrown around for MAGA supporters. Not too long ago, Biden was calling MAGA supporters ultra MAGA, and now it's semi-fascist or fascist. And now it's MAGA Republicans. You see how the terminology is growing? They're lumping more and more people into this category. He then goes on to state how he is a president of all Americans, not just red or blue Americans, but all. Well, let's see how much he means that. Because I'm here to debunk Biden's propagandist war speech. And this time, he debunked himself for me. If he is president of all Americans, then why are MAGA Republicans extremists? Did the MAGA movement burn, riot, loot, rape, pillage, occupy cities, or riot for an entire year, even to this day, across the country? Or try to murder Supreme Court justices for their decisions? Or did MAGA people hunt down Antifa members in Portland and shoot them? No, that was all Democrats, progressives, socialists, anarchists, and communists who committed violent political extremism in support of and supported by the Democratic establishment. Let's not forget that MAGA Republicans from January 6th were locked up in solitary confinement in federal prisons for over a year for misdemeanor charges. Yet Antifa and BLM rioters, looters, rapists, murderers, and arsonists who should have felonies, they aren't charged, arrested, or even investigated sometimes. And when they are arrested, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's staffers assist in bailing these criminals out. Or left-wing bail projects bail these criminals out. They're going to put people in there who want to open up their businesses during COVID and people who are smoking pot at their homes in jail. Yet they're going to release the hardcore offenders. Gotcha. Next, I have a question. Who dictates who these MAGA Republicans are? Are they the folks who support Donald Trump? If so, then at least 74 million Americans are now extremists in your eyes? Or are they the people who want America to be great again? Now you're telling over half the country that they're political extremists. Or are MAGA Republicans anyone who doesn't support you and your radical ideological policies? He says he has worked with Republicans. Does he mean people like Liz Cheney, who sold out the Republicans and Donald Trump, who lied and held a farce, fake show trial that they called television episodes? Liz Cheney, who is so anti-America and anti-Republic that she was voted out of office? He later says, quote, "And I believe it's my duty to level with you, to tell you the truth, no matter how difficult, no matter how painful. And here, in my view, is what is true. MAGA Republicans do not respect the Constitution. They do not believe in the rule of law. They do not recognize the will of the people," he says. And I need to interject here. This racist, plagiarist president is lying directly to your face. He couldn't even get 5 minutes into his speech without lying through his teeth. Directly to your face. If he cared about truth and being level with us, he would quit lying about where he grew up to garner votes from coal miners. He would openly reveal what happened with Hunter Biden's laptop, his daughter's diary, and Hillary Clinton's email servers. Perhaps he would admit that the January 6th investigations produced no evidence of mass collusion to overthrow the government. Perhaps he would say that billions of US taxpayer dollars were wasted investigating Trump and Russia collusion, which has since been proven to be false and based on demonstrable lies. Or perhaps he he would tell you the real reason why his son Beau died. Now, this two-faced, lying scumbag gets away with being on national television and lying to your face while he declares it to be truth. Yet people like me and others on YouTube and other platforms, we have to tiptoe about what we say, sources we use, content we use, how we use it. Yet they promote, support, and defend the president's lies. And again, how dare they say Republicans don't respect the Constitution or the rule of law? Where were you in 2020 when the left burned American cities to the ground and continued to get away with these crimes to this day? Where were you when BLM and Antifa caused over $2 billion worth of damage? That's just what the insurance companies were willing to pay out. There's estimates that it was at least $4 billion worth of damage from those riots across the country. Oh, that's right. You were campaigning for your presidency, supposedly, in a bunker or in your basement, in between naps and diaper changes. Biden goes on to say, quote, "They refuse to accept the results of a free election, and they're working right now as I speak in state after state to give power to decide elections in America to partisans and cronies." Now, I remember in 2016 when Trump was elected and Democratic supporters lost their freaking minds in the streets of these Democratic-run shitholes, screaming and crying at the top of their lungs about the racism and the fascism of Orange Man. And I seem to remember you heading a committee during a previous election in which Democratic representatives were objecting to certifying electors in their states. Isn't that what you cried about Trump supporters calling for? I'm going to paraphrase here, but later he says, more or less, that if you support the pro-life movement, you are against America's values, and you must be lumped in with these MAGA Republicans. He says that January 6th saw a lot of cops attacked, and that Republicans don't view that day as an insurrection. I agree. That was not an insurrection. I agree that January 6th was not a riot. It was a mostly peaceful protest. It was a mostly peaceful protest where one peaceful protester, who was a military veteran, was shot and killed for looking through a broken window. She was the only person murdered that day, and it was by federal agents. Again, during the riots of 2020, over 30 persons were murdered by BLM and Antifa. And every Democrat in public eye called them mostly peaceful protests, with fires raging in the background and felonies happening on live television. He then accuses MAGA Republicans of trying to interfere with and change the voting processes. Well, he must have forgotten about, all of the Democratic-run states who illegally and or unconstitutionally changed state laws before the election of 2020 to favor mail-in ballots and extend the vote count deadlines. He says he wants to build a future that doesn't think about the past, more or less. And I would say then, quit blaming Donald Trump for every single one of your personal failures, for every single one of your personal shortcomings and your political blunders. He constantly talks about how Democrats support the Constitution and the rule of law. Yet why don't they enforce the law? Why do district attorneys across the country refuse to prosecute criminals and let out actual criminals? Why do they strip away our constitutional rights? Why does Joe Biden say that no amendment to the Constitution is absolute? Why do they talk about packing the Supreme Court with extra justices just so they can get their way? Why are they still supporting no evictions for people who didn't pay their landlord once, during, or after COVID? He says we are not a nation that uses political violence as a political tool and that we do not encourage violence. Yet, that's right, Maxine Waters told supporters to get in the faces of Trump supporters, no matter where they are, and you get in their faces and you make them feel unwelcome. Now, his party continually denies the existence of Antifa and BLM extremists, yet supports the actions taken by these groups. Antifa and BLM are extremist activists. They are exactly the brown shirts of Hitler's Gestapo, and they are exactly Mussolini's black shirts. They are the political enforcement wing of the democratic establishment. What do you have to say about it? What, man? What do I call him? Do I call him Scar? Do I call him Hitler? Do I call him Mussolini? Our president gave a soul of the union address where he claimed to know what Americans feel. He claimed that the economy is great. Holy shit. What kind of a world does our president live in where he doesn't understand the economy? He doesn't understand the impacts his policies have made on Americans. He clearly doesn't understand what fascism is or how fascism is implemented. And by the way, hey there, to Kayla and James from Trinidad. I appreciate you checking out this video, man. First person I've seen from Trinidad. I appreciate it. But it's just, to some degree, it's terrifying to hear a president call over half the country political extremists, semi-fascists, fascists, ultra MAGA. Maybe people like me want to make America great again and understand that we don't need Donald Trump to do that. We can make America great again with Ron DeSantis. But we will never make America great by any means with Joe Biden at the helm. Nobody knows who leads this regime. Nobody knows who's actually making the decisions. I mean, hell, during the State of the Union speech, the Soul of the Union address, Biden had to be walked out onto stage by his wife. And then as soon as the speech ended, she had to come up on stage and collect him to make sure that he didn't wander off or go in the wrong direction, to make sure that he didn't turn and try to shake hands with someone who's not there, to make sure that he didn't trip and fall. And then she has to pull him away from the microphone at the end, which, thank God someone cut his microphone, because guess what? He tried to turn around and talk into the microphone and say God only knows what after. And we're supposed to believe that this man who can't even get to the stage by himself, let alone talk for a half hour straight uninterrupted, he made it 24 minutes, I'll give him that. We're supposed to believe that this man is making all the decisions in the country right now? Huh. He's using the FBI and the DOJ to investigate and target and harass his political enemies. That's fascism. There's groups out there called Antifa who call themselves anti-fascist, who are copycats of a real anti-fascist action movement from Germany in World War II. And they use fascist tactics and beliefs and ideologies to enforce their political beliefs against anyone who disagrees with them. Many have said it, I've said it, and many people speculate, are we in a civil war? Is civil war coming? When will the ball drop? I mean, in 10 years, maybe we'll look back and we can say the ball's already dropped. Maybe it dropped in 2016, or maybe it was the riots of 2020. Maybe it was George Floyd. But I think we can all recognize the country is not where we should be. The economy is not where it should be or where it could be. It's not where it was. We can't even afford gas, groceries, baby formula. You know, we can't get, we got so many crises going on. And this bumbling, doddering old fool can do nothing to help it except to blame everyone else rather than admit it's his policies and his beliefs, his ideology that has ruined America and its values and its economy. I would encourage you to check out his entire Soul of the Union speech for yourself. It's laughable. One of the things I found great about it was the people heckling Biden to some degree for the entirety of his speech. I could hear him clearly in the background. Let's go, Brandon. Fuck Joe Biden. And I support that message 100%. Don't forget, exercise your right to vote in the coming midterms and exercise your right to vote in the upcoming presidential elections. Do not fall for this call to violence. Hear me, conservatives and Republicans. Do not fall for these calls to violence from the left. They want us to do something stupid. They have no policies or good ideas to run on for 2022 or 2024. They're the people that they're trying to get into offices right now are they're already having their butts kicked by candidates who are supported by Trump. We're making a slow change. We're slowly doing the right thing and getting to the right places again. We have to do this correctly and legally, as Republicans tend to do. If we're going to take back our country, we must attempt to do it legally, constitutionally, and morally. We cannot fall into this us versus them mentality. I get it. If we are in a civil war, it is us versus them. However, and I try to say this often, people say we should try to live by the golden rule. Treat others how you want to be treated. I argue that, at least over the last couple of years, we haven't treated ourselves very well. So I say, by all means, treat everyone else better than you want to be treated. Leave the world a better place than you found it. Help your friend pick up their toys when you're done playing at their house. Clean up after yourself. Make your bed. Do the right thing. Don't lie. Treat people with honesty, kindness, and respect and love. And let the truth be heard. Let the truth be heard. There's no such thing as your truth. That's not reality. It might be a reality in your life, but that's not reality. The truth, the scientific, objective truth is reality. And I try to bring you the unobjective, unarguable, undeniable truth. Joe Biden lied to you for 22 minutes. I've tried to bring you honesty for 27 minutes now, 27 and a half minutes. We have to be honest with each other. We have to be honest. We have to be allowed to be honest about the news and what's going on so we can have honest discussions about what needs to happen, how we move forward, what actions we need to legally take to change things. If we don't know the information that's happening around us, how can we take action to change? Anyway, voting that's the only way to save this country at this point. You have to make your voting power heard. Damn to hell whatever you hear on the internet, the radio, the newspapers, from Joe Biden's mouth, from CNN, from Fox about election interference, election insecurities, fears about your ballot being lost or stolen or not counted. If enough people go out and vote and make your voice heard, that won't matter. Election interference won't matter. Cheating won't matter. Imagine if we get 120 million Americans out to vote Republican or Libertarian even. Put some Libertarians in office. That'd be great too. Imagine what we could do and what we could change. I don't want to hear that you're upset about the economy and politics and you think, everyone on the right's are racist and this and that. If you don't vote, you've done little to contribute to society. Besides what? Pay your taxes and go to work? You need to take control of what's happening around you, in your community, in your family, in politics. You need to care about what's happening. What happens to you at the local level, even at your school functions, is going to affect you later on in life. People that run for school boards later try to run for governor and mayor, and people who run for governor and mayor try to become politicians and senators and congressmen and women. And then those people try to become president one day. You need to pay attention to politics. And it's boring and it's frustrating. Or you can listen to summaries of it from people like me on YouTube. You know, I would like to share the message and the truth with you so that way everyone can be more educated and at least have the same factual basis of where to begin. You know, I don't care if we differ on where we get to some place, as long as we can agree to get somewhere that's better for everybody. I mean, right now, the far left, the political left, the Democratic establishment has gone so far left that even regular Democratic voters are now called right-wing or MAGA Republicans. Yet they accuse Republicans of being far-right extremists. Our values haven't changed. In fact, we've eased up on some of our values, right? A lot of Christians, Catholics, churches, synagogues, they're at least more open to the idea and the dialogue of the LGBTQ community and welcoming to those people to some degree in some situations, more so than they ever have been. Biden doesn't know the soul of the union. He doesn't represent America or its values. And we need to vote him out of office. Please, please make your votes count. That's what will save America. That's what will make America great again. And I appreciate you staying here for a whole half hour. I hope this wasn't too boring. I know I did a lot of rambling. I hope that I was able to bring enough evidence, enough pictures to your mind to really show what was displayed during this speech. And if you think this message was good, please like this video so we can beat the algorithm, and subscribe to this video so you don't miss notifications of my uploads, which happen a few times a week, and subscribe. That way we don't miss the bell. Share this video with your friends if you think they need to hear it. And again, thank you for coming, and I'll see you all soon.